Well, yes, because what happens is if the person is uninsured, and this actually is going to lead right into what we're going to talk about umbrella coverage. If someone causes an accident, they are uninsured, whether the policy lapsed or they didn't have one. The first thing that that your insurance company would do, first of all, with regard to the damage to your own vehicle, as well as even if your own uninsured and uninsured motorist coverage, is to determine whether or not that person has any assets. If that person has assets, then they oftentimes will go after that person to recoup money. If you don't have sufficient limits and the person who is injured, let's say on a highway in a bad crash, a bad accident, if you don't have sufficient coverage, they can come after you for anything above your limits, or if your policy is out or expired, for anything. So anything that would be over your limits is where your umbrella policy would come in and protect you. And again, those are maybe $100, $200 a year sometimes, maybe. They're very inexpensive to have. Very rarely does anybody need them, but when they need them, they need them. That's the one thing I can tell you, is when you need that policy, you really need that policy. And especially as if somebody, in Pennsylvania, there are certain protections to being married. So when it comes to assets. And when somebody is a widow or a widower or divorced, you lose that protection of being married and the protection of your assets. So one thing that if you've become a widow or a widower, if you've become divorced, I always recommend to my clients, take a look at your policy, because if you've got any kind of assets at all, you want to make sure that your assets are protected.
Edie, what do you mean if you're married, you're protected? Does that mean they can only come for 50%?
Well, no, you can't attach, in Pennsylvania, you cannot attach the assets that are spousal marriage assets, okay? You can joint assets. Well, the joints are there's different kinds of joint. But when we're talking about spouses, okay, marriage, the marital assets can't individually be attached. And most of the time an accident is the result of the fault of one person, not both. So that your umbrella policy and your auto insurance first and an umbrella policy after that would protect your assets as an individual, because again, your marital assets can't be attached. There's joint. It's different if it's joint, like a daughter and a mother. Or, that's a different kind of joint. Yes.
If you have an umbrella policy, does that help with the deductible at all?
No. Not deductibles for you? No. Deductibles are a wholly different choice, and actually that's one way to help control a cost on a policy, and you determine what is best or not best for you. Again, there's on the policy, and we didn't really talk about deductibles and the property damage aspect of it, but there are two different types of coverage on the property damage aspect of it, which is, we can see here this person has comprehensive, and that has a $500 deductible. So comprehensive is where you are protecting yourself should you cause damage to your own car. That's what comprehensive is. Property damage is if you cause damage to somebody else's property. So now the comprehensive deductible here is $500. Some people choose to have $1,000, and if they have enough money in the bank account and then they figure, well, you know what, it's better to save money on the policy. How often would I be in an accident?
Also,
but if and how old the car is, whether or not you whether or not you need it. A lot of times, you know, as a car gets older, its value decreases, and it may not even be worth fixing. So, you know, again, so that's something why another reason why you would want to look at your policy every year as your cars change, as they get older. these are things, again, just to keep yourself educated as to where you are and what your coverages are. Now, when we're talking about an umbrella policy, it does cover on the auto, but it's also on your homeowners as well.